Hey guys, this is Lauren from Anawaya. We are at part 3. I ended up having to go back and re-record parts 1 and 2. So now parts 1 and 2 are actually parts 1, 2, and 3. So for those of you that are like watching the whole series, you're gonna have to watch my like ugly mug for like an hour. So I apologize for that. But hopefully, if you're watching it for a whole hour, you're actually finding it somewhat useful. So, part 1 was was how to set up your actual validation structure. Part 2 was post validation, so assessing completed assessments for the theory component. Part 3 is going to be assessing completed practical components. So when we go into assessing practical assessments from a pre-validation perspective, there's a lot more detail that goes into this, so that's going to be coming up in a couple of videos, or you can literally watch the whole series on YouTube now if you want to, through my YouTube channel, because I'm just going to whack everything up there, and then I'm going to put a little bit up every couple of days on LinkedIn. But so post validation of practical assessments is really, really hard. So the first reason why it's often hard is because in not great practical assessments, it's literally just a tick and flick list of like, here's the 20 criteria that we need them to see, and there's no date as to when it occurred, there's no context, and so it's very challenging. And so normally if that's the case and it's literally just a checklist of observations and nothing else, that's going to be more of an issue for me at the pre-validation stage, and that's where I'm going to be providing feedback at the pre-validation stage. And I'm interested to hear like if anyone believes that you can do a practical assessment of just tick and flicks and have that be like very, very valid. The reason I have a hard time with it is just because I've seen too many assessments that like where literally trainers have sat there and said to me, I just tick everything, like I know what I need to see. And when I actually start going through it with them, they're like, oh no, they don't do that, like we can't do that, that's not practical. Or like, no, they don't do that on their work, like they can't do that on their work sites. And I'm like, but you've ticked the box to say they've done it, so why tick the box to say they've done it if you know they haven't done it? And like it may just be my experience, and like seriously tell me if I'm wrong, because I would love to know that I'm the only one that feels this way, but I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm not. I've seen too many assessors that like will literally just go through, and they're not ticking it while they're doing it at the actual assessment, they're ticking it after they've gotten back into the classroom at the end of the day. They haven't actually, like, they couldn't tell me the main things that were on the list. Like if you pull a trainer out of a classroom and go, okay, for this particular unit of competency, like name like 10 things that you're looking for in the assessment, right? And like they'll, like, good trainers will know what they're looking for, like they'll know the big things that they're looking for. But when you start going through like the full list, like so often it occurs that trainers will turn around to me and go, but that's not practical, they can't do that. Like I was talking to a trainer the other day and we were looking at civil construction, and one of the requirements of most of the ticket units, guys, so for all of you civil construction providers out there that provide tickets, one of the requirements of most of the tickets is that you load and unload from the float. Okay? And I've had so many trainers turn around to me and go, yeah, but that's not practical, they don't do that. And I'm like, but it's a criteria in the unit. So, here's a note to the council, I think it's Artibus, guys, okay, make that unit a separate unit, which it is. It's like actually its own whole unit of competency. Please take it out of the ticketed units, because the skill of actually driving the trucks versus actually loading and unloading the trucks from the float trailers, there is a lot of guys that will go through their jobs just driving the machines, not actually unloading. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but training packages is one of my irks. So go through your unit of competency, read through the actual checklist, and make sure that your trainers are actually doing it. And this is where I find things like, you know, chop cards, pre-starts, JHEs, JHEAs, JHAs, you know, take fives. This is where I like to see some additional context of the student actually going through and planning out the exercise. Without any additional documentation, if it's literally just the checklist and there's no supplemental information on there, it is incredibly hard from a validation perspective to go, yeah, that's valid, right? Too many validators, compliance officers, too many assessors. Like, you guys as assessors, if you're validating work of like a coworker, you know, like, really in detail read through what you're supposed to be doing as part of that assessment, right? And, you know, there's the difference between the trainers that go until 4 o'clock in the afternoon versus the trainers that, you know, everyone's done by 2 o'clock in the day. And yet for some reason, like, it's the same trainers that are saying, oh, but there's not enough time in the day. Like, when you're actually assessing a unit properly, it is hard work. And if you have an assessor that is actually properly assessing and evidencing their units of competency, there should be an allocation of admin time. Like, if your trainers are training and assessing 5 days a week and they are assessing from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, cheese and crackers, do you have a bloody good trainer? Because I don't know very many people that would be training 5 days a week that would not then have to be up marking on a nighttime if they're doing a proper job of marking. When you're marking and assessing properly, it is hard work, and there does need to be an allocation of like admin time. Unless like you've structured your class so that like your students are working on theory assessments in an afternoon, and so you've kind of built in that time for yourself as a trainer, or like within your session plan, that like, you know, each day you've got like a solid hour where you're actually going to have time to do marking and stuff like that built into the classroom time. And if DTWD or any of the funding providers are watching this, that's fair and valid. And if people from ASCO are watching, I actually still do believe that, you know, when students are completing assessments, that actually should be considered training time as well, because anytime you're undertaking assessment, you're refreshing that information in your mind and you're interpreting. Anyway, I'm going off track again. But yeah, when we're going about doing practical assessment validations, I do go through the same process. I batch. So I pull out 4 students' forums and I look at what the things are doing. I look at the checks that are being done by the trainers, because trainers check everything the same way. And so if there's 4 different kinds of checks, then I'm thinking that the students have marked themselves off, which I've seen as well. There's not much I haven't seen in this industry. So there's a lot of things to look for. Again, I just go back to the fact that, like, batch your assessments. Like, batch them by trainer and by incident, and you're going to get a lot more information in relation to the quality of your trainers. Like, I can batch assessments, and some trainers just amaze me in, like, it's so clear they're passing on the knowledge and the skills to their students, and they're going through really strong, like, assessment processes, and it's so reassuring to see when that's occurring. But it's also really interesting to see when trainers and students choose to take shortcuts, and I tend to pick it up so much more easily when I'm batching assessments. So that's video number 3, guys. Thank you very much for listening to me and listening to my ranting. If you've got a rant, pop it below, because I want to hear that I'm not the only crazy one in our lovely industry called VET. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day. Bye.